Welcome to Techiechap. In today's episode, we will be taking another look at Ghost BSD. This time, it's the latest version of Ghost BSD, 22.06.18. And rather excitingly, at least for me, it's based on FreeBSD 13.1, which I reviewed recently and noted it had great speed improvements and additional hardware compatibility. So what can Ghost BSD do with this new engine under the hood? Let's find out after the intro. Okay, so here we are. This is the Ghost BSD installer. This is the screen that you're presented with when you download the ISO and you copy that onto a USB stick. You can use something like Berliner Etcher or any of the USB creation tools. If you're using Windows, then that might be Rufus, which is a good tool for creating USB boot media. So I'm going to press 1 to boot multi-mode. That's kind of the default that it selects if you just let it install. What it will now do is it will load the live CD into RAM. That's why it needs 4 gig of RAM as a minimum specification, because the whole live CD basically loads into RAM, and that's what makes a live CD run so quickly, and that's quite normal for BSD. So we'll just wait for this to load into RAM, and that shouldn't take too long. Okay, you just caught there that it's on FreeBSD stable 13.1, and that's the reason why we are installing and running this, is because of that. So here we are. This is a BSD installer via a live CD, just like you would get on Linux, and you are presented with a desktop. So that's really nice. Now obviously, if you've tried BSD before, then you might be used to text-based installers, and it may be a little bit not confusing, but maybe a little bit threatening if you're not used to text-based installers, or might feel a bit old school. So it's really nice that Ghost BSD put together this live CD that you can boot straight into, and you get a graphical installer. Now, as I said, and this is the reason why we're doing this, is this is based on the latest version of BSD 13.1, so that's brilliant. So we're going to click on install Ghost BSD and select English, and then if we just scroll down, I never know why on this installer, why when you select English it immediately dumps you into another language, but that's perhaps something to look at in the future. English UK is, I'm based in the UK, and again, if I click on Europe and scroll down here, and London. All right, I'm going to do a full disk configuration. Now at the moment, I'm running this on a VM machine, but what I'm going to do is, once I've shown you this installer and we have it up and running, then I'm going to jump across to the physical machine, and we're going to look at Ghost BSD running on a normal regular laptop, just like we normally do. So this is literally just to show you the installer. So there we are, there's the VBox hard drive that I've set up, and we click next. It's going to say FreeBSD BIOS loader only. So just to be aware of this, and if you have a previous version of Ghost BSD, there were some issues with the previously released version that has now been patched. So make sure that if you're going to try this, that you download the latest version of Ghost BSD. Otherwise, you may run into problems when you try to install onto a hard drive, but they've all been sorted now. So just make sure that you've downloaded the latest ISO from Ghost BSD. I'm going to put Techiechap in there. we're going to put a really super weak password, because this is just to demonstrate how easy the installer is. And installation in progress. So the installation takes some time, and but not overly long. Basically, this is just installing everything you need for Ghost BSD, and hopefully this will land us in a desktop environment after a reboot. So what we'll do is we'll fast forward the video, and basically that should leave us where the installation is complete. But hopefully you can see how easy it is to install Ghost BSD and how quick it is as well. Great. So installation is complete, as you can see, and it was very easy, very straightforward. So so we're going to restart, and what we'll do is I'll jump across to the other machine, and we'll take a look at Ghost BSD running on actual hardware. So here we are. This is the very latest version of Ghost BSD 22.06.18, and let's just take a look to see exactly what we have installed. So if we launch Mate or Mate System Monitor and we take a look at System, we can see, yeah, it's 22.06.18. And the really exciting bit is that this is running on a brand new kernel, which is FreeBSD 13.1 stable. That's also just been released, and I reviewed that in just a few weeks ago, and noted that it was very fast and challenging also a lot of the Linux distros for speed. We are still running the same Mate or Mate version, which is 1.26 as my previous review. Obviously this is still release 22 of Ghost BSD, but it is a significant release simply because of the change in kernel will mean that a lot more hardware is supported out of the box, and indeed it is. My camera was detected first time, the network card has been detected, everything that I've plugged in so far has been detected. And what we'll do in this review, I'll show you a little bit customizing the Mate or Mate desktop, and also how to get software applications, but we'll also test it with an external monitor and check to see that that all works as well. So it'll be a fairly thorough test in terms of this release. I'm running this on an i5 6200 CPU with 2.3 gigahertz. It's another HP laptop, so very similar to the spec that I tested on before. That HP laptop has now been given away, but this laptop is very similar specification, other than it's at a slight disadvantage in that it has 12 gig of RAM and the last one had 16 gig of RAM. Both of those laptops had SSDs in, as does this, so very similar in terms of tests. So it'll be interesting to see how this fares given the review I did previously. If I click on resources, you can see again that the CPU is running really nicely. The fans aren't kicking in on the laptop at all. It's running about 20%, and yet I am recording this at 1080p, even though the screen itself is 1366 by 768. My camera is 1080p. The CPUs are hardly taxed at all. And what's really impressive as well is that all of this is running in around 1.1 gig of RAM as well. So we have 12 gig of RAM obviously, and there's also a swap partition as well of 2.3 gig. That's not being used at all. So in terms of resource, it's running really well. So what I'll do is I'll just leave this running over here. So what we'll do now is we will install some software. So if I go to System go to administration and go to software station and just type in my password there. Now previously in my last review, software station needed a little tinkering with in the background because the repositories were so slow. I needed to change the source of repositories where it basically pulls the software information from. I needed to change the location of that to France, but as you can see now they seem to have corrected that and it just works out of the box. As I've said, I haven't changed anything in the background and I haven't changed the repository locations. If I wanted to further improve things, I could do that, but as it stands, it's actually fairly okay, fairly fast. Packages available 31,812, so there are plenty of software out there to try, and again it's nicely categorized on the left there into different types of applications. So we're going to install some software. As always, I will try and build this video using the laptop. And I'm pleased to say the search as well seems to have improved. It was a little buggy before. When I started typing, it would search straight away. There seems to be a slight delay now when you type, so that you are able to type the whole word without it's going off to search and then delaying the whole thing. So I'm going to install Kdenlive and let's apply that. There's going to be some extra software changes. It's going to need to install some plugins. Confirm that. Also, what was really nice, I had to install OBS on here to record this video, and what was really nice in the software station is that you can also at the same time install lots of OBS plugins as well. So that was really cool that I could select those plugins, things like filters, noise filters, things like that. I could select those plugins and install that all at the same time through software station. So actually that works really well. So Kdenlive is now installing, that's fetching all of that, and you can see it's doing that fairly rapidly. It's not in terms of where it's getting it from, I would say that it's probably getting it from a location that isn't optimized, but I'm trying this out of the box, and out of the box it's fairly okay in terms of usage. So I'm just going to minimize that whilst that's installing. As you can see, even though I'm running software station, I'm installing software, the memory usage is still really low, and as is CPU usage. So the system is really holding up very well. Because we are using the same version of Mate or Mate, everything within here looks pretty much the same as before, and it's all fairly rapid. You don't get thumbnail previews, but you can change that if you want to. Let me just go to preferences, display, preview. Here we go. Show thumbnails, local files only, show text, preview, local files only for files smaller than 10. So I'll just change that to say 100 meg. And close that. We'll reload this and see if that makes any difference. Okay, no, still no thumbnails here. Let me just double check that I've set that properly. Preview. Just change that to always. And count number of items. Yeah, close and refresh. Okay. Still no thumbnails, so that's interesting. I'm not sure. Maybe that's because it's, if I pop that in videos, reload that. No, still no thumbnails. So it does appear that thumbnails isn't working on here. It was working in the previous release, so I'm not sure what that is, what the reason that is, but it doesn't stop the system from working, but yeah, it would be nice if thumbnails was there. So Software Station is still installing that, still going off to fetch the packages. So clearly in Software Station there are still optimizations that could be made. Obviously I'm based in the UK, and I think the bulk of the development on Ghost BSD is done in Canada, and so it's kind of probably optimized for the Canada US market. If I just tax things a little bit, and we'll launch Firefox as well, and so we should start to see the CPU, and indeed it does. The CPUs are starting to get taxed a little bit, but still, and the RAM as well is now gone up to 13.3% usage, but still, you know, I'm now running Software Station, installing software. I've got OBS running, recording this. I've now got Firefox running. The system is holding up really well. And if I just go to BBC, you can see everything is still really snappy. And it's impressive. It really is impressive that, you know, I'm doing all of this. I've got software installing, I've got OBS recording, and I'm still able to browse the internet and, you know, launch a few tabs as well. You know, I'll go to YouTube, maybe watch a YouTube as well. That all works fine. Yeah, it all is just working really well. So multiple tabs open. Now I'm starting to approach 50% if I'm in Firefox, and if I just go to Reddit as well, there we go. So as I do things in each individual tab, you can see that the CPUs there are starting to get taxed, but this is really quite stable for a machine that is a middling spec machine. But yeah, given that I'm installing all this software in the background, sometimes when you're installing software you kind of have to wait for things to finish, but yeah, it's working quite well. What I would say about Software Station is installing Kdenlive at the moment is taking far too long. So OBS was really quick to install, including its plugins. However, Kdenlive is taking some time, so I'm wondering, is there some more optimizations that need to be done on the repositories? And that's really easily done. I showed how that could be done on the last video, so I'll just let that keep installing at the moment. So far it's quite impressive. What I'm going to do now is just demonstrate the plank or the dock. So if I click on plank, there we go, we get a nice modern looking dock thing at the bottom, but of course you've still got your panel down here, and that's quite easy to remove. You just click on delete this panel, delete, and there we are. So now we have a much more Mac-esque type look to things, and some people might prefer that. There is actually an XFCE edition of this as well, which is the community edition. That is available as well on the latest release, which is 22.0618. I'm going to pause the video there whilst all this stuff is running, and I'm going to try it now with an external monitor connected, and we're going to see if that works as well. So bear with me, I'm going to be setting things up with the monitor, get that attached and plugged in, and we'll just transition once I've got it all set up. Back again, we now have the external monitor plugged in and it works okay. What I will say was that it was a little glitchy when I first plugged it in, because this is now a 1080p monitor and my laptop screen is 1366 by 768. it kind of glitched out a little bit. The laptop screen was fine, but the monitor screen was a little all over the place, and I had to reboot. But I'm pleased to say now, having rebooted and set the monitor to 1920 by 1080, everything works okay. What I will say is that the icons from the laptop screen that are on the desktop haven't moved across, even though I've made this Asus monitor the primary display. But that's not too bad. Everything else seems to be working okay. I can move from screen to screen okay, and that all works fine. So yeah, so we now have the Ghost BSD running with a 1080p monitor, external monitor plugged in. I've got my Logitech C920 camera plugged in. It's all detected fine, and yeah, it's working really well. So if we can see on the dock here, we have Evolution as the default mail client, Rhythmbox is the default music player, VLC default media player, Eye of Mate is the image viewer, and then we've got another Evolution icon here as well. So a little bit of duplication there. Getting rid of that should be as easy as that. So you just right click the icon and click on keep in dock, untick it to remove it. But what's nice is you do have, when you right click on things like Evolution, you do get a number of options that are linked to Evolution, such as compose a message and get to your contacts calendar and so on. So that's really nice that that's kind of the functionality is built in on the Planck dock down here. So now we've got something that's starting to look pretty good, and you know, it's quite easy to change the desktop background as well. So you've got things like this, which is a slideshow of the cosmos, and that will change as well automatically. So there we go. So that all looks fine. And then you've got some other backgrounds as well. They like their lightning here on Ghost BSD. What I will do actually is, I think this time I'll change it to the bridge. Okay, so hopefully you have been able to see that very quickly with very little effort. We've now got to a place with the Ghost BSD desktop that it looks like most other modern desktop environments. And that's quite nice, and you can go even further than that under preferences and look and feel. If you go into station tweak interface, you can change what's called the panel layouts, and that will change how basically the panel behaves, how the panel looks, and there are lots of different looks that you can select. So you can go even further if you want to. I'm keeping it to the default Mate or Mate layout for the time being. What I will say as well is that if you want Planck to launch every time you restart your desktop, you will need to add it into startup applications, and that's what I've done here. So under startup applications, you can see I've added this customize additional startup program. If I click on edit, that is all there is to it. Just give it a name. The command is simply Planck. Save that, and it will automatically start Planck on your startup. Overall, Ghost BSD is super quick. It's super quick to start on this i5 with 12 gig of RAM. Very quick. I mean, it starts within a few seconds, and applications launch again really quite quickly as well. So if I launch Firefox, there we go. So that launches really quickly as well on this i5. And as you saw earlier, the system resources are very small. It's really good on system resources, as you can see at the moment. So Ghost BSD 220618 running on the FreeBSD 13.1 stable kernel. I think it's fantastic. It's a fantastic entry point if you want to use BSD or give BSD a tryout. It works really well. It's very familiar if you've installed Linux before or gone through any of the Linux installers. It's very familiar in that respect. It's like installing any other Linux distro. It's as easy as that. And to get people into BSD and to start using BSD, it's a fantastic starter for 10 to just start to get into how BSD works. And BSD, what does it offer? It offers super stability. It's one community that develops the operating system, and it is a operating system, so everything in it is developed by one entity. And that's one of the things that offers a lot of benefit to stability within the FreeBSD environment and BSD in general. So if you want something that is super stable, that isn't going to break on the next software update, then Ghost BSD potentially is the operating system for you, and it is as easy to install as any other Linux distribution is to install, if not in some ways quicker as well than a lot of Linux installations that come with a lot of software bundled in. With this one you get the basics, admittedly, but it's very easy to go into the software station and choose an application to install. So would I recommend this? Absolutely. If you want to get into BSD, this is a great starter. In terms of rating, I've got to say there are a few small bugs to iron out in terms of like the installation. I wasn't keen on the fact that I had to select country several times before I got to the point where I could carry on the installation. I think there are too many steps in there, but that is so small, it's so insignificant, it's not a showstopper at all. I would say Ghost BSD is a 4 out of 5 for me. It's a brilliant distribution. If you want to try BSD, definitely give this one a go. Anyway, that's kind of the end of my review of or update review on Ghost BSD 22.06.18, very latest Ghost BSD. And if you've enjoyed this review, then please give it a thumbs up. I'd love to see your comments as well. It's been great, the amount of engagement that I've had on the last few videos. Fantastic, thank you so much. And yeah, if you want to continue seeing reviews like that, then please do subscribe as well. So I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.